All right, my component is coming along just nicely. Now I'm ready to add in my quick selection. Let's say I want to use this component for a date of birth selection. The way our component works right now is it's easy to switch to a month that's near to whatever the date starts at. But if I need to go back, so it takes 12 clicks for every single year, I would like to find a way to quickly get to whatever I want. Oh, we noticed something interesting happened there. Let's fix that first. So notice what happened here. When I clicked on this select and I clicked here, it's making it hide. And we know that our hide happens when we tap the background. But I don't want that to happen when I tap the background through this component. I want this now to block the clicks going to the background. So let's fix that first. Let's go back into our component, and just on the top level here, Date Picker UI, I'm going to uncheck this to make lower layers touchable. That way clicks don't pass through to items that are underneath. Now, the interesting thing about that is if I do need the opposite of that, I can still customize that for the Date Picker component, right? I can actually change it over here on a per copy basis if I needed to. I'm going to think the vast majority of use cases, I'm going to want this unselected, so I'm going to put that into the component, so that's the default. So let's see if that fixed that problem. Click on that, and there we go. But if I click back here, there we go, it hides. And this toggle still works too. So, okay, great. Okay. Let's now work on our quick selection. We're going to do this inside the component, and we are going to import parts of our design here, but I obviously don't want to import this entire artboard because that's going to create a new scene. Instead, what I'd like to do is if I click on this over here, we've got this date picker, and then I've got this quick select group. I'm just going to import just this group. So let's make sure, by the way, make sure that you are inside the date picker component. So if you're in the scene like this, make sure you're inside the date picker component first. And then I'm just going to export that group, and there we go. And we're going to have this in here. And the way this is going to work eventually is we're going to have it hidden by default, and then when you click this guy up here, it's going to show it. But let's build in our functionality first before we build in that capability. The way this will work is these will be two independent scrolling panels, and I'm going to be able to select a month and a year, and then if I click done, then it will hide this UI and then go back and then generate the month based on the month and year that I've chosen. If I hit cancel, then that's going to discard any changes I've made here and just hide this. So let's set this up. I want these days to be in a scrolling container. So if I open up this quick select, you see I've got this year scroller container, and I've got this month scroller container. And if I were to just set this up as a scrolling container, it would kind of work. So actually, let's do that. I'm going to turn this into a scrolling container so we can see this now. If I can scroll this up and down, but that's not really what I want. Notice how the white bar is moving with it, and then I can only scroll so far. Actually, what I want is a scrolling container that contains just the text, and that slides over top of the bar. So I'm going to undo that change. And this one here called month list, let's turn that into scrolling container. Let's see what that does. Scroll vertical, and let's see if that gives us what we want. Okay, no, it doesn't. And the reason for that is this month list is the same height as the items that are in here, so there's nothing to scroll. So maybe I want to make this a bit smaller. And so let's say I want to make it the size of that, right? So if I preview that and I can scroll this now, okay, well, I'm getting the text sliding, but it only slides so far. Let's change this a little bit more, and let's change our scrolling item to be right here. And let's preview this, and now we should be able to scroll. And as long as we scroll right on here, if I try to scroll here or if I try to scroll up here, it doesn't work, but I have to scroll right on this center part right here. So I want to make sure that I can add touch area to the top and the bottom of the scrolling container. So let's change this month list. Let's call this month scroller because that's what it is. And then I'm going to change the touch area on here. So I'm going to make touch area on the top a bunch of times until we cover the whole thing, and same thing on the bottom. And notice how my month scroller is a little bit inset. Let's add some touch area over here to make sure we cover that area to the left as well. So that way, anywhere I scroll from within that gray panel is going to scroll that container. So I'm going to preview this. There we go. I can scroll that up and down. Okay. Our design shouldn't behave like this. I shouldn't have January black the whole time as I scroll up and down. If I scroll into view here, I want February to be black. And then if I scroll up here, I want March to be black and then these to be gray, etc. I want to change this so that way as I scroll up and down, the month that is currently in view is going to be black and the rest are going to be gray. I also want all the months. And I'm going to handle this with a single text box instead of multiple text boxes. If I were to have multiple text boxes in here, I'd need a lot of condition to say, is January the currently selected one? If so, make it black, make everything else gray. Is February the current selected one? If so, make it black, make everything else gray. I don't want to do it that way. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get rid of these guys. And I'm going to change this into a multi-line text box that's going to have all the month names in here. So let's change this to an editable text layer. And I'm going to change this to months. Or this can even be month list. That used to be the old name of the parent container, but we turned that into scroller. This can be month list. And then I would like to modify this so that way it has all the months in it. Now you'll notice if I try to modify it, it's not letting me do it. And this is, again, a bug we need to work around in Studio. It won't let us access that text layer. Now, if this were in the scene, I could hit enter and it would make this editable, but curiously, that doesn't work inside a component. So what I need to do is temporarily, I need to move it outside and then I can modify it. So I'm going to put all of my month names in here. Okay, there we go. Now I have all of these in here. Obviously, this is now showing only the ones that fit in there. So I'm going to turn this into an auto height one. And I also want this to start here. So I want this month list, I want it flush with the top of my month scroller. So if we take our month scroller and if I put it back inside here, I want it to be at Y0. Now, currently its origin point is in the center, so I'm going to change the origin point to the top left, and I'm going to set now the top to Y0. Now, the size of our scrolling container is going to have a relationship with how I format this text field. So right now, if I have this scrolling up and down, you'll notice I'm not scrolling 1 month at a time, first of all, but multiple months fit in the box at once. I want one line of text to fit into the height of my scrolling container. My scrolling container is currently 48 pixels. If yours is something different, make sure it is exactly 48. And the reason for that is going to be evident shortly. My month list, I want to make sure that the line height between all of my months is exactly 48 pixels. So I currently have a text size of 24. Then I have line height and it's set to auto. And that auto is 1.21. I'm going to change this to 2. And what line height means is this is a multiple of the font size. So if my font size is 24 and my line height is 2, my line height is going to be exactly 48 pixels. And magically, ProtoPie and websites work the same way. My line of text is going to be centered perfectly in that line height of 48 pixels. So now when I preview this, I can only fit one line of text in here at any one time, right? So this is kind of working to my liking, but I can stop it here. Obviously, it's not what I want. I want to be able to stop it only on the particular month. And as you might guess, I'm going to turn this into a paging container and not a scrolling container. So click on month scroller. We're going to change to paging. Make sure we have vertical. And I'm going to page by, and I want to make sure this is exactly 48 pixels. So custom 48. And now when we scroll up and down, it should stop on any one particular month. And there we go. Now I have my month selection. I'm not getting my text, though, going gray for the one that's not selected. And if you know anything about ProtoPie, you'll know that I can't change the formatting of a text box. I can't change parts of a text layer. I can only change the entire text layer to have a single style. But what I do want to happen here is I want my selected month to be black, but any of the unselected months to show up in this gray color. So first of all, let's go take a look at what that gray color should be. And I'll take a look in my design, and I see that this should be at a 30% fill. So if the selected color is black at 100% fill, my unselected is at a 30% fill. Well, again, I'm not going to change the text color. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a shape over top, underneath the selected area and above, that's going to be the same color as this background shape, but it'll be at 70% fill, meaning that 30% of the text will be able to show through. So let's do this. Let's create a shape. And I'm going to create it right here. Now it's going to create it on top. I obviously don't want it there. I want it above the month scroller. So inside the month scroller container and above the scrolling container itself. And let's just make sure we've got it lined up properly in here. I'm going to change its fill color to match this background color. And I'm going to change its opacity to 70%. Oh, look at that. And I need one for the top as well. So let's option drag this. And they'll be sitting on top. And I'll call this mask bottom. And this one will be mask top. All right, let's now preview this. And let's see what that looks like. Look at that. Now I'm getting that effect. And notice how if I scroll it halfway, it's colored halfway. So here, let me just get right in there. It's colored halfway because it's passing underneath that veil. So it's acting more like a window as opposed to changing the color of the text. I like the way that this plays out better than we could have done it the other way. And also this container here, the month scroller, sorry, not that one. The month scroller container, this is set to clip the sublayers. So even though my masks aren't perfect, notice how it extends down, further down the bottom, and the one on the top extends further on the top. This one is clipping the sublayers, so it keeps it all perfect looking. So, all right, so there we go. So now I've got my selection for months working. I want to do the same thing with the selections for years. Now, the concept is going to be the same, except that this is not going to be a fixed list. So I have a number of years in here just to kind of show the differences in styles, but you'll recall I want to have this configurable. I want to have it such that I can set the minimum and maximum years, and ProtoPie will generate this list for me. So let's set this up so that way it works the same way, first of all. So my year scroller container, let's get rid of all of the text ones except the 2024. And I'm going to make this editable, and we'll call this year list. And I already have it at 48 pixels in height, so that's great. Let's put this inside a scrolling container. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to group this, and I'll call this year scroller. This is going to be a paging container, height of exactly 48 pixels. And just to make sure that I got my scrolling correct, let's now just put in a few years in here. And again, I need to drag this outside for the time being and give myself just like a few years. So 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030. This is going to be enough just to make sure I've got the scrolling working. All right, let's change the alignment of this text so that way it's aligned to the top and not to the middle. And I want to set the line height on this once again to not auto, but I want it to be 2. And we're going to put the year list inside the year scroller. Our year list, we want to make this into an auto height. And let's make sure the origin point is top left. And I'll set the Y property in here to 0. And we should be able to scroll that up and down now, right? right? Only when I scroll right on the white box here. So let's make sure we add our touch area. So we're going to add, not on all sides, but add enough to the top and enough to the bottom to make sure that anywhere I scroll from within there, we'll scroll that container. So I can scroll from here. And there we go. So now we go. Okay, I have this scrolling correctly. Let's add in our mask on the top and the bottom so it looks like what we have over here. So same thing. Let's make a shape. And let's make sure that it's, there we go, flush with the bottom of there. We'll call this mask bottom. Let's give it the same background color as before. And we're going to give it we'll give it the opacity of 70. And we want one for the top. So this will be mask top. And if you want to be precise about that, you want to make sure that your box lines up with the middle point of this window shape that's above. That's this cursor shape. So should be right here. You should see the mask come to right in the middle of that, and the same thing with this one over here. Mask top and bottom. So let's zoom back out. Let's preview this. And now I should be able to scroll, and we're getting that window effect. And it's set to paging, so I can only go to a specific year, an exact multiple of 48 in my scrolling. Okay, that's great.